Welcome back, everyone. Tonight, I'm bringing you 3 deeply unsettling stories about fake police officers. People who use the authority and trust we place in law enforcement to prey on unsuspecting victims. These aren't stories about actual corrupt cops. These are about criminals who impersonate police officers for the most sinister reasons imaginable. These stories are real. They happen to real people who were just going about their day when they encountered someone pretending to wear the badge. And in each case, trusting that fake authority could have cost them everything. Before we begin, I want to ask you something. If you got pulled over right now by an unmarked car with flashing lights, would you know how to verify it's a real police officer? Most people don't. And that's exactly what these predators count on. Drop a comment and let me know. Have you ever been in a situation where you weren't sure if someone was really a cop? Your story might help someone else recognize the warning signs. Alright, let's begin. And remember, these events actually happened. Story 1. The Vacation House Stalker. My parents own a vacation home in Quincy, California. It's a beautiful property, about 2 acres surrounded by dense woods, completely isolated from the nearest neighbors. We used to go there all the time as a family when my siblings and I were kids, but now that we're all adults with different schedules, we don't really have time to coordinate family trips anymore. When I was in the early stages of dating my girlfriend Rose, I told her about the vacation house during one of our first dates. It was early October, and I mentioned how stunning the fall foliage is in Quincy, the way the leaves transform into these brilliant reds and golds, creating this almost surreal natural beauty. I casually suggested we could spend a weekend there together, just the 2 of us. She immediately said yes, which honestly surprised me. This was only our 5th date, and I wasn't sure if suggesting an isolated cabin in the woods was going to come across as romantic or serial killer-esque. But she was excited about it, so 2 days later, we were packing our things and getting ready for the road trip. I picked her up from her apartment around 10 a.m. on a Friday morning. The drive to Quincy is about 5 hours from where we live, so we had plenty of time to talk and get to know each other better. We spent the drive discussing everything: TV shows we were binge-watching, childhood memories, family dynamics, our hopes for the future. When we ran out of things to talk about, we'd put on comedy podcasts or music. The time flew by. When we finally made it to Quincy, I drove through the small downtown area first because I wanted to show Rose how charming the town was. It's one of those quintessential small California mountain towns, population maybe 5,000, with cute local shops, a historic courthouse, and that peaceful atmosphere you can't find in the city. About 10 minutes later, we arrived at the house. We have a simple wooden fence at the end of the driveway that we keep closed whenever the property is vacant. It doesn't have a lock or anything. It's just a basic deterrent to keep random people from wandering onto the property. I got out of the car to open the gate, then drove through onto the property. My dad pays landscapers to come every couple of weeks during the summer and fall, so despite nobody being there for a few weeks, the property looked well maintained and beautiful. Rose was genuinely impressed. "This is amazing," she said, looking around at the trees in the house. We arrived just in time for lunch, so we unpacked the car, I gave her a tour of the house, and then I turned on the hot tub so the water would be heated up for later that evening. After settling in, we drove back into town to grab lunch at one of my favorite local restaurants. A small place that serves incredible burgers and has been there since the 1950s. After eating, we did some sightseeing. We visited the Plumas County Museum, walked around the downtown area, and just enjoyed being together in this peaceful setting away from our normal lives. By the time we headed back to the house, it was starting to get dark. The sun sets earlier in the mountains, and by 6:30 p.m., the property was already cast in twilight shadows. We changed into our swimsuits and got into the hot tub on the back deck. The hot tub is covered by an awning, which provides some shelter, and the view from there looks out over the wooded backyard. It was really cold outside, probably in the low 40s, but the hot water felt incredible. We sat there talking and relaxing, enjoying the contrast between the cold air and the hot water. We'd been in the hot tub for maybe 20 minutes when we both heard it. The distinct sound of leaves crunching nearby. Footsteps moving through the underbrush at the edge of the property. We both went silent, listening carefully. "Is that a bear?" Rose whispered. "Maybe," I said, though I wasn't entirely sure. Bears weren't uncommon in the area, but this sounded different somehow. More deliberate than an animal rooting around. Then we heard it again, definitely footsteps moving closer to the house. "We should get inside," Rose said, her voice tense. We both jumped out of the hot tub and ran into the house, dripping water everywhere. I quickly locked the back door behind us and turned off all the exterior lights, thinking that if it was a bear, the lights might be attracting it. I also turned off most of the interior lights, not wanting to draw attention to the house. Rose grabbed a towel and wrapped it around herself. Should we call someone? Let me check what it is first, I said, trying to sound calm even though my heart was racing. I crept over to one of the front windows and carefully peeked through the curtains. What I saw made my stomach drop. It wasn't a bear. It was a person. A man walking slowly along the side of the house, moving from the backyard toward the front. Even in the dim light, I could see he was wearing dark clothing and moving deliberately, like he was trying to stay quiet. I immediately ran back to the back door to make sure it was locked, then closed all the blinds on the windows. What is it? Rose asked, her voice shaking slightly. There's someone outside, I said quietly. A person. Walking around the house. What? Are you serious? I nodded, putting my finger to my lips to indicate we needed to stay quiet. The footsteps continued, circling the house. We could hear them crunching through the leaves and gravel, moving from one side to the other. Then they stopped, right at the front door. We both stood frozen in the living room, barely breathing, waiting to see what would happen next. After a moment of silence, there was a loud knock at the door. Rose jumped, grabbing my arm. Then a man's voice called out, "Police! Open up!" I looked at Rose, confused. Police? Why would the police be here? I approached the front door but didn't open it. Is there a problem? I called through the closed door. We got a call about a possible break-in at this address. The voice responded. I need you to open the door, sir. That didn't make sense. At all. How is that possible? I called back. The nearest neighbor is a quarter-mile away. Who would have called? There was a noticeable pause before the man responded. I just need you to open the door, sir. Something about his tone felt wrong. Cops are usually more professional, more detailed in their explanations. This felt off. I don't feel comfortable opening the door right now, I said. Can I see some identification? Sir, I need you to open this door immediately. His tone had shifted, more aggressive now, more demanding. I had an idea. I went to the window next to the front door and carefully pulled back the curtain just enough to look outside. If there was really a police officer at my door, there should be a patrol car parked in the driveway. The property was isolated enough that I'd be able to see it clearly. There was no police car. No vehicle at all except my own car where I'd parked it. My heart started pounding harder. I don't see a police car, I called through the door. So I'm not opening the door. If you're really a police officer, you can radio for backup and have a marked unit come out here. There was no response. We waited in tense silence for what felt like forever but was probably only 2 or 3 minutes. Then we heard heavy footsteps moving away from the front door, walking back around the side of the house. I went back to the window and carefully looked out, trying to see where he'd gone. But the property was too dark and the woods provided too much cover. He could be anywhere. What do we do? Rose whispered. We stay inside, I said. Lock everything. Don't go outside for any reason. I did a quick check of every door and window in the house, making sure everything was locked tight. Then I grabbed my dad's shotgun from the closet and loaded it just in case. We spent the rest of the night in the bedroom watching movies on the laptop, trying to act normal but both of us constantly listening for any sounds outside. I kept the shotgun under the bed within easy reach. Eventually, we fell asleep around 2 a.m., exhausted from the adrenaline crash. The next morning, everything seemed normal. Bright sunshine, birds chirping, no sign of anyone on the property. We tried to enjoy the rest of the weekend. We went hiking in Plumas National Forest, had lunch at another local restaurant, saw a movie at the small theater in town. But both of us were on edge, constantly looking over our shoulders, wondering if we'd see that man again. When we got back to the house that evening, just as it was getting dark, we pulled onto the property and Rose suddenly screamed. Oh my God. I slammed on the brakes, thinking I was about to hit something. What? What is it? She pointed toward the house, her hands shaking. Someone was just there. They ran into the woods. I looked where she was pointing and caught just a glimpse of a figure disappearing into the tree line. A dark shape moving quickly between the trees before vanishing completely. Are you sure? I asked, though I could tell from her face she was absolutely certain. Yes. They were standing right by the front door. When we pulled up, they ran. This was escalating. Whoever this person was, they'd come back. And they were watching the house, waiting for something. I tried to keep Rose calm even though I was terrified too. It's okay. We have the gun. We're leaving tomorrow morning anyway. We'll be fine. I pulled the car as close to the front door as possible, then we quickly got out and ran inside, locking the door immediately behind us. I did another complete check of the house. Every door, every window, every possible entry point. Everything was locked. We weren't going outside again that night. We packed our things so we'd be ready to leave first thing in the morning, then retreated to the bedroom for the rest of the evening. After watching a movie, we tried to sleep around 11 p.m. That's when I started hearing it. A strange scraping sound coming from outside. It would happen every few seconds, scrape, 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 then stop, then start again. I couldn't tell what it was or where exactly it was coming from, but something was definitely happening out there. I lay in bed, listening carefully, trying to determine if it was getting closer to the house. The scraping continued for maybe 10 minutes, then suddenly stopped. Complete silence. I waited, my heart pounding, wondering if whoever was out there had left or if they were just being quiet now. After a few minutes of silence, I carefully got out of bed, trying not to wake Rose. I crept over to the window and slowly, carefully, pulled back the curtain just enough to peek outside, and found myself staring directly into the face of a man on the other side of the glass. He was inches away from the window looking in, and he definitely saw me. I fell backward and screamed. I couldn't help it. The shock and terror just exploded out of me. "Jesus Christ!" I yelled. Rose woke up immediately, sitting up in bed. What happened?" I didn't answer. I just grabbed the shotgun from under the bed, made sure it was loaded, and ran out the back door. I fired 3 shots into the air, boom, 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 while screaming at the top of my lungs, trying to scare off whoever was out there. "Get the fuck out of here. I'll kill you. Get out." I stood on the back deck, shotgun raised, scanning the darkness for any movement. Nothing. Just silence and the fading echo of the gunshots. I went back inside, locked the door, and found Rose sitting on the bed, crying. I explained what had happened. The man looking through the window, how close he'd been, how he'd been right there watching us. "We need to leave," she said. "Right now. We need to go." "It's the middle of the night," I said. "We don't know if he's out there waiting. It's safer to stay inside until morning." I kept the shotgun with me the rest of the night. We didn't sleep at all, just sat in bed, listening to every sound, jumping at every creak of the house settling. When the sun finally came up, we packed the car as quickly as possible and left. On the drive home, I called the local police department and filed a report. I described everything: the fake cop at the door, the figure we'd seen by the house, the man looking through the window. The officer who took my report said they'd increase patrols in the area and keep an eye on the property. But they were honest with me. Without a clear description of the suspect or any evidence, there wasn't much they could do. My family has been back to the vacation house several times since then. We've installed better locks, security cameras, and motion sensor lights. Thankfully, that man has never come back. At least not while we were there. But I still think about him sometimes. About how he pretended to be a police officer to try to get us to open the door. About how he kept coming back, watching the house, waiting for his opportunity. And I wonder, if I had opened that door when he first knocked, what would have happened? I'm glad I never found out. Story 2, the midnight traffic stop. This happened to me about 3 years ago when I was driving through Colorado in the middle of the night. I was on a solo road trip, one of those spontaneous decisions to just get in the car and drive, clear my head, see some new places. I'd been on the road for about 6 hours, and it was around 1 a.m. when I found myself in Tabernash, which is a tiny mountain town with a population of maybe 400 people. Basically, it's the kind of place where there's one gas station, one restaurant, and a whole lot of nothing. I stopped to fill up my tank and grab some snacks, energy drinks, chips, beef jerky, the usual road trip fuel. After paying, I got straight back on the road. The highway through that area is winding and narrow, cutting through dense forest with steep drop-offs on one side. At 1 a.m., there were absolutely no other cars on the road. It was just me, the darkness, and the occasional reflection of animal eyes in my headlights. I was going about 55 miles per hour, right at the speed limit, being extra careful because I was tired and the road conditions were challenging. You never know where a cop might be hiding, especially in small-town areas where traffic stops are a major source of revenue. I'd been driving for maybe 10 minutes when I saw it in my rearview mirror. Flashing lights. Red and white alternating rapidly. My stomach sank. I immediately looked at my speedometer. I was going 56 miles per hour. Maybe 2 miles per hour over the limit at most. I pulled over onto the shoulder and the vehicle behind me pulled over as well. I sat there for a moment, hands on the steering wheel, trying to figure out why I was being pulled over. I hadn't been speeding. I hadn't been swerving. All my lights were working. I checked before leaving on the trip. Through my rearview mirror, I watched the officer get out of his vehicle and approach my car. As he got closer, I started to notice things that didn't seem right. His vehicle was completely unmarked. No police decals, no department identification, just a dark SUV with lights mounted inside the grille. And his uniform looked off. He was wearing all black with a tactical vest that resembled police gear. But his vest didn't say police anywhere on it. Instead, it had a patch that said something like Criminal Task Force or Crime Investigation Unit. I couldn't read it clearly in the darkness, but it definitely didn't say police. His badge also looked wrong. It wasn't the standard star-shaped police badge I was used to seeing. It was more rectangular and had text I couldn't make out. He approached my window and I rolled it down about halfway. "License and registration," he said. No greeting, no explanation of why he'd pulled me over. I've been pulled over a handful of times in my life, and every single time, the officer has started by explaining why they stopped me before asking for documents. This felt wrong. "Is there a reason you pulled me over?" I asked, keeping my tone polite but firm. "I'll get to that in a minute," he said. "License and registration." "I'd like to know why I was pulled over first," I said. "I know I wasn't speeding and none of my lights are out." "Sir, I'm not going to ask you again. License and registration." I studied him more carefully now. His badge didn't say police anywhere on it. The patch on his vest said Criminal Task Force, which sounded made up. And most importantly, his vehicle had red and white lights, but no blue lights. I'm not a legal expert, but I knew enough to know that legitimate police vehicles in Colorado use red and blue lights. The absence of blue lights was a potential red flag. "Are you actually a police officer?" I asked directly. His expression hardened. "I'm part of an undercover unit. Now give me your license and registration." "Can I see your badge number?" I asked. "I don't have to show you that," he said. That was a lie. I knew that much. Police officers are required to provide their badge number and identification when requested during a traffic stop. Everything about this situation was screaming danger at me. "Sir, I need you to step out of the vehicle," he said, his tone getting more aggressive. "I'm not comfortable doing that," I said. "Can you call a supervisor to the scene? I'd like to verify this is a legitimate traffic stop." His jaw clenched. He put his hand on my car door handle, trying to open it. Thank God I'd locked it. "Open this door right now," he demanded, raising his voice. "If you're a real police officer, you shouldn't have any problem getting a supervisor here," I said, my heart pounding. "Until then, I'm staying in my vehicle." He started yelling now. "Get out of the car. Get out of the car right now." I made a split-second decision. I rolled up the window, put the car in drive, and pressed the accelerator. I heard him shout something behind me as I pulled back onto the highway, but I didn't stop. I didn't look back. I just drove. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel. Part of my brain was screaming that I'd just fled from a police officer and was about to be arrested. But another part, the part that had noticed all those wrong details, knew I'd made the right call. I looked in my rearview mirror and saw the unmarked vehicle pull onto the highway behind me, lights flashing. He was following me. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911, trying to keep my voice steady as I explained the situation. "I'm being followed by someone who I believe is impersonating a police officer," I said. He pulled me over in an unmarked vehicle with red and white lights, no blue lights. His uniform doesn't say police. He refused to provide a badge number. He tried to force me out of my car, and when I refused, I drove away. Now he's chasing me. The dispatcher asked for my location and description of the vehicle following me. I gave her everything I could, my approximate location on the highway, the make and model of the SUV, the fact that it had red and white lights but no blue. "Sir, I need you to stay on the line with me," she said calmly. "The nearest police station to your location is the Fraser Winter Park Police Department. I'm dispatching a real officer to meet you there right now. Can you make it there safely?" "Yes," I said. "How far is it?" "About 8 minutes from your current location. I'm going to give you directions." She guided me turn by turn, staying on the phone with me the entire time. The unmarked SUV followed me for about half the journey, lights still flashing. But as we got closer to the police station, as we entered a more populated area with street lights and buildings, he suddenly turned off his lights and made a hard right turn at an intersection, disappearing from view. He was gone. And that confirmed everything. A real police officer would have followed me all the way to the station. A fake cop would bail the moment things got too public. I pulled into the Fraser Winter Park Police Department parking lot, where an actual marked patrol car was waiting. The officer got out as I parked. A real officer in a proper uniform with a proper badge and a real patrol car with red, white, and blue lights. I got out of my car, and I'm not ashamed to say I was shaking. The adrenaline crash was hitting me hard. The officer introduced himself and asked me to describe exactly what had happened. I walked him through every detail: the traffic stop, the officer's appearance, the wrong uniform, the missing blue lights, the refusal to provide a badge number, the attempt to force me from my vehicle, the chase. He took detailed notes and said they'd be increasing patrols in the area and looking for vehicles matching the description I'd given. "You did the right thing," he told me. "Everything you described are classic signs of a fake cop. Real officers will always identify themselves properly, provide badge numbers when asked, and if you request a supervisor, they'll radio for one. They won't try to physically remove you from your vehicle without cause." He recommended I file a full report, which I did. I gave them everything: my contact information, a detailed description of the fake officer and his vehicle, the exact location and time of the traffic stop. Before I left, the officer gave me some advice that I'll never forget. "If you're ever in a situation like this again and you're not sure if it's a real cop, call 911 immediately. You have the right to do that. Tell them you're being pulled over and you want to verify it's a legitimate officer. They'll contact the department and confirm whether there's actually an officer at that location conducting a traffic stop. And if you're being pulled over by an unmarked car in an isolated area at night, you're legally allowed to slow down, put your hazards on, and drive to a well-lit public area before stopping. Real cops will understand and follow you there." I thanked him and finally continued my trip, though I was too shaken to drive much further that night. I found a hotel about 20 minutes away and checked in, barely sleeping because I kept replaying the encounter in my head. The police never caught the guy. They found similar reports from other drivers in the area over the following weeks, but without a license plate number or clear identification, there wasn't much they could do. I still think about that night sometimes. About what would have happened if I'd gotten out of the car. If I'd followed his orders. If I'd trusted that he was who he claimed to be. I don't know what he wanted. I don't know if he was planning to rob me, kidnap me, hurt me, or worse. But I know this: trusting my instincts and refusing to comply with his demands probably saved my life. Story 3: The Home Invasion Setup. I'm 29 years old and I live alone in a small house in rural Michigan. It's about 2 hours outside Detroit, far enough from the city that I feel like I can actually breathe, but close enough that I can still drive in for work during the week. I bought the house about a year ago specifically because I wanted to escape the city lifestyle I'd grown up with. I was tired of the noise, the crime, the constant stress of being surrounded by people all the time. My house sits on about 3 acres of property, and my nearest neighbor is about a quarter-mile away. It's the kind of place that might seem isolated or even creepy to some people. The kind of house where horror movies are usually set. But I loved it. I loved the quiet. I loved being able to sit on my porch and not hear traffic or sirens or people yelling. I loved seeing stars at night instead of light pollution. I worked in the city Monday through Friday, then drove out to my house every Friday evening and stayed there through the weekend. It was my escape, my sanctuary. I didn't have many friends in the rural area, but that wasn't why I moved there anyway. I moved there to be alone, to decompress from work stress and social obligations. One Friday evening, shortly after I arrived at the house for the weekend, there was a knock at my front door. I opened it to find a man in his mid-30s standing on my porch, holding a clipboard. He was wearing business casual clothes, khakis and a polo shirt with some kind of logo I didn't recognize. "Good evening, sir," he said with a practiced smile. "I'm with Atlas Home Security. Are you currently satisfied with your home security system?" I immediately knew he was selling something. Door-to-door salesmen were pretty common in rural areas. Alarm companies, solar panels, internet providers, you name it. "I don't have a security system," I said. "And I'm not really interested, but thanks." He didn't take the hint. Instead, he launched into his pitch. "Actually, sir, that's exactly why I'm here. Are you aware of the recent break-ins in this area? We've had 3 home invasions in the past month within a 5-mile radius of your property. As a homeowner, especially living alone in an isolated area, you're at significant risk." I hadn't heard about any break-ins, which made me skeptical. Our local crime rate was virtually non-existent. That was one of the reasons I'd moved here. "I appreciate the concern," I said, "but I'm really not interested." He kept pushing. "I understand. But let me ask you this, do you live here alone?" The question made me uncomfortable. That's not information you give to a stranger at your door. "That's personal information," I said. "But either way, I'm not interested in a security system." "I completely understand," he said, still maintaining that salesman smile. "How about this? Just give me your phone number and I'll follow up with you in a couple weeks to see if you've changed your mind. If I call you back within that time frame, I can waive the installation fee completely. That's a $300 value." I hesitated. part of me wanted to just say no and close the door. But waiving the installation fee was actually a pretty good deal, and I figured I could always just not answer when he called. "Alright, fine," I said and gave him my phone number. He wrote it down, thanked me profusely, and left. I didn't think much of it after that. I went to the kitchen, made dinner, and settled in to watch Yellowstone on the couch. I was in the middle of a serious binge, watching episode after episode. Around 11 p.m. there was a knock at the door. I paused the show and sat there for a moment, confused. 11 o'clock at night is way past the appropriate time to knock on anyone's door, especially in a rural area where people go to bed early. I wasn't super close with my neighbors, so I wouldn't expect it to be one of them. And anyone I actually knew would call or text first. I ignored the knocking and went back to watching my show. But the knocks persisted. Louder now, more insistent. Knock, 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 knock. I still didn't get up. There was no way I was answering my door at 11 p.m. to some random person. Then there was a third round of knocking, even louder and more aggressive. Knock, 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 knock. Now I was getting concerned. This person wasn't leaving. They were getting more persistent, which meant they either really needed help or were up to something bad. I went to the door but didn't open it. "Who's there?" I called through the wood. No response. This is literally how every horror movie starts. Woman alone in isolated house. Mysterious person at the door who won't identify themselves. "I'm not interested in whatever you're selling," I called through the door. "And I have a gun that I'm not afraid to use." I don't actually own a gun, something I was starting to regret, but it's an easy enough threat to make someone think twice about messing with you. The knocking stopped. I waited by the door for a moment, listening, then went back to the couch. I thought that was the end of it. Then my cell phone started ringing. I looked at the caller ID and my blood ran cold. It said, 911 Emergency Services. I'd never received a call from 911 in my entire life. I didn't even think that was possible. I always assumed that if the police needed to contact you, it would show up as unknown number, or county sheriff, or something like that. But there it was, clear as day, 911 Emergency Services. I answered the phone cautiously. "Hello? Is this George Mitchell?" a man's voice asked. "Yes, who is this?" "This is the Oakland County Police Department. We have officers outside your residence right now. There's been a report of suspicious activity on your street, and we need to ask you some questions. Can you please open the door?" Everything about this felt wrong. If there are officers outside my house, why didn't they identify themselves when they knocked? I asked. "Sir, we need you to cooperate. We have officers on scene, and we need to speak with you about a potential crime that occurred in your area." "Okay," I said slowly. "Can you have the officers go to my front window so I can see them and verify they're actually police before I open the door?" "Sir, that's not how this works. Our officers are outside your door. You need to open it and comply with their instructions." "I'm sorry, but if they're real police officers, they can absolutely come to the window and show me their badges," I said. "I'm not opening my door to someone I can't verify is actually law enforcement." There was a pause on the other end. "Sir, you're obstructing an investigation. If you don't open this door, we'll be forced to enter by other means." That was it. That was the line that confirmed this was absolutely not a real 911 operator or real police officers. "I'm hanging up now," I said. "If you're real police, you can wait there while I call 911 myself to verify." I hung up. Immediately they tried calling back. The same caller ID, 911 Emergency Services. I declined the call and put my phone on Do Not Disturb. Then I actually called 911 from my phone. The real 911 operator answered, and I quickly explained the situation. Someone knocking on my door late at night, refusing to identify themselves, then calling me from a number that appeared to be 911, claiming to be police officers. "Sir, that is absolutely not a legitimate call," the operator said firmly. "We do not call citizens and demand they open their doors. And our number cannot be spoofed to show 911 Emergency Services on caller ID. That's impossible. You're dealing with scammers, and given the circumstances, you may be in danger. Are you alone in the house?" "Yes," I said, my voice shaking now. "Okay, I need you to lock all your doors and windows right now. Find something you can use to defend yourself if necessary. I'm dispatching officers to your location immediately. Stay on the line with me." I was still on the phone with her when I heard it. Someone was trying the back door. The handle was being jiggled, turned back and forth, tested. "They're trying my back door," I told the operator, my voice barely above a whisper. "Officers are en route," she said. "Estimated arrival is 8 minutes. Stay away from all doors and windows. Do not open any doors. Do you have a weapon?" "No," I said. I don't own a gun. That's okay. Find something heavy, a baseball bat, a kitchen knife, a hammer, anything. And go to a room where you can lock the door and barricade yourself if necessary. I grabbed the largest kitchen knife I had and went to my bedroom, which had a lock on the door. That's when I heard it. Bang, bang, bang. Someone was kicking or ramming the back door, trying to break it down. They're trying to break in, I told the operator, my voice breaking. They're kicking the door. I'm showing officers are 6 minutes out, she said. Make noise. Yell that the police are on the way. Let them know they're going to get caught. I went to the bedroom window, which faced the back of the house, and screamed as loud as I could. The police are on the way. You're going to get arrested. Get out of here. I heard a voice yell back, this is the police. Open the door. But I could see them now through the window. 2 men wearing ski masks and dark clothing trying to kick down my back door. One of them looked up and saw me in the window. He saw that I was on the phone. They must have realized I was talking to the actual police because they immediately stopped kicking the door and ran. They disappeared into the darkness beyond my property line, heading toward the woods. I stayed on the phone with the 911 operator, watching through the window, until I saw the flashing lights of actual police cars pulling into my driveway. 2 patrol cars, real marked units with real police officers in proper uniforms. I let them in and they did a complete search of my property with flashlights, looking for any sign of the intruders. They were gone. But the damage to my back door was obvious. Deep dents in the wood where they'd been kicking it, scuff marks on the door frame. One of the officers, a veteran cop who'd been with the department for over 20 years, sat down with me and walked me through what had happened. This is a sophisticated operation, he explained. They're spoofing 911 calls, making it look like the call is coming from emergency services when it's actually coming from a burner phone with specialized software. They use this to try to get people to open their doors late at night. Once you open the door, they force their way in, rob you, and in some cases hurt you. How do they know who to target? I asked. The door-to-door security salesman, he said. That's how they scout properties. They come to your door, see if you're home alone, assess how isolated your house is, and collect your phone number so they can spoof the 911 call later. You said you live alone? Yes, I said, realizing with horror that I'd basically told the salesman everything he needed to know to target me. He picked your house specifically because you're isolated and you told him you were alone, the officer said. You were the perfect target. I felt sick to my stomach. The officer recommended I install an actual security system, get motion sensor lights for the exterior of my house, and consider adopting a large dog. He also told me something that I've thought about every day since. You did everything right tonight. You didn't open the door. You didn't trust the caller ID. You called 911 yourself to verify. Those decisions probably saved your life. The police increased patrols in my area for the next few weeks. I installed security cameras, motion lights, and a proper alarm system. I also talked to my neighbors, all of them within a 1-mile radius, to warn them about what had happened. None of them had been visited by the security salesman. My house had been the only one targeted. I still live there and I still love the isolation and the quiet. But I'm much more careful now. I never open the door to unexpected visitors. I verify everything through security cameras first, and I trust my instincts when something feels wrong. Because sometimes, the person claiming to be there to help you is actually the person you need to be most afraid of. 3 people. 3 fake cops. 3 close calls that could have ended in tragedy. I want to thank everyone who shared their stories. These experiences are terrifying, but by sharing them, we can help other people recognize the warning signs and protect themselves. Here are some important things to remember. Real police officers will identify themselves clearly and provide badge numbers when asked. Have marked vehicles with red, white, and blue lights. Wear proper uniforms with clear department identification. Allow you to call 911 to verify their legitimacy. Follow you to a well-lit public area if you signal and drive there slowly. Fake cops often drive unmarked vehicles with only red and white lights. Wear generic, tactical clothing without proper insignia. Refuse to provide badge numbers or identification. Become aggressive when you ask questions. Try to force you from your vehicle or into your home. Operate in isolated areas late at night. If you're ever unsure, call 911 immediately. You have that right, and real officers will understand and confirm their legitimacy through dispatch. If tonight's stories resonated with you, please like and subscribe. Share these stories with your friends and family. The more people who know these warning signs, the harder it becomes for these predators to operate. Stay safe out there. Trust your instincts. And remember, Real cops won't mind you verifying their identity. Fake cops will. Until next time.